Now, Ukraine is about to get its hands on a brand new American weapon, the Extended Range Attack Munition, or ERAM. Now, on paper, this is the poor man's cruise missile, low cost, quick to produce, and able to hit targets 280 miles away. Washington just approved the sale of 3,550 of these standoff missiles to Kyiv. That's right, thousands of them. And while Russia scrambles to figure out how to stop yet another threat, the bigger question is, will Ukraine actually be allowed to use them the way they need to? Or will U.S. politics keep these weapons leashed? Let's break it down. Welcome back. I'm Wes O'Donnell, recovering journalist, veteran, and your guide through the weapons and strategy shaping the Ukraine war. And today we're talking about ERAM. What is it, how it works, and which Ukrainian aircraft can launch it. Oh, and why it could be the perfect balance of firepower and affordability. So what exactly is ERAM? Well, the Extended Range Attack Munition, or ERAM for short, is not your typical missile. Think of it as a lightweight cruise missile, somewhere between a guided glide bomb and a JASSM strike weapon. We're talking about a 500-pound air-launched missile with a reach of 240 to 450 kilometers, or about 150 to 280 miles. For comparison, Ukraine has received JASSM ERs and small-diameter bombs from the U.S., as well as French-made hammer-guided bombs, all of which can hit targets out to distances of around 40 to 45 miles, depending on the release envelope. Now, this new weapon is deep enough to put Russian ammo dumps, command centers, and even naval facilities on the Black Sea coast within striking distance. The ERAM tips the scales at roughly 226 kilograms, or about 500 pounds. It cruises at a speed of around Mach 0.6, carrying a blast fragmentation warhead with penetration capability to handle both soft and moderately hardened targets. Despite Russian attempts at GPS jamming, the missile maintains impressive precision, with accuracy measured at better than 10 meters CEP, or circular error of probability. That's about a 33-foot chunk of the ground. So basically, it's a long-arm punch in missile form. It's not meant for dogfighting or shooting down drones. This is all about hitting ground-based targets. Depots, radar sites, command bunkers. So ERAM is an air-launched weapon. You don't stick it on a HIMARS, you don't bolt it to a truck. An aircraft carries it under its wing or belly, releases it at altitude, and from there, ERAM powers itself to the target. It uses a combination of inertial navigation, GPS, and terminal guidance for that last-mile accuracy. The modular design also allows different seeker heads depending on the mission. Land targets, ships, even hardened bunkers. And yes, that means Ukraine can strike targets far behind Russian lines while staying safely out of the Kremlin's beloved S-400 engagement envelope. Sorry, Russia, but your air defense operators may need extra coffee. So here's where it gets interesting. Not every Ukrainian aircraft can just slap on an ERAM and call it a day. But several platforms are good candidates. The Su-24 Fencer has already proven itself as Ukraine's go-to bomber for carrying Western long-range strike weapons, including the Storm Shadow and the Scalp EG. If the aircraft can handle the massive 1,300-kilogram Storm Shadow, then carrying the much lighter 226-kilogram ERAM will be no challenge at all. Because of this track record, Su-24s are the most likely candidates to be the first Ukrainian jets firing ERAMs in combat. The MiG-29 and the Su-27 have also shown remarkable adaptability during the war. Both were modified to carry and fire the American AGM-88 HARM anti-radiation missile early on, proving that their airframes and avionics can be adjusted for Western munitions. Integrating ERAM would just require a minimal wiring and pylon tweaks, making the process relatively straightforward. Given that these fighters make up the backbone of Ukraine's day-to-day air operations, it's realistic to expect them to deploy ERAM in large numbers once integration is complete. Now, the F-16 Fighting Falcon represents probably the easiest integration pathway of all. Built from the ground up with Western avionics and Western systems, the F-16 can carry ERAM almost out of the box, with only software updates and minor adjustments needed. These aircraft will become Ukraine's long-term ERAM workhorses, no doubt. The F-16 will give Kyiv a reliable, modern platform capable of unleashing ERAM strikes deep into contested territory. And let's not forget about the Mirage 2005s, which Ukraine has begun receiving from France. The Mirage is already configured for Western strike weapons with relatively minor software updates. These French-built fighters could be adapted to carry ERAMs just as easily. While they may not be as numerous as other aircraft in Ukraine's fleet, the addition of the Mirage 2005s capable of launching ERAMs would further expand Kyiv's options for long-range precision strikes. So the Su-24 is the veteran heavy lifter, the MiG-29 and the Su-27 are the adaptable scrappers, and the F-16s and the Mirages are the sleek new kids on the block. Put ERAM on all of them, and suddenly Ukraine has a distributed, survivable strike force capable of hitting deep targets at will. Now, here's the catch. According to the Wall Street Journal, Washington approved the sale of 3,550 ERAMs as part of an $850 million European-funded package. Now, delivery is expected in about 6 weeks. But as with everything in this war, the devil is in the politics. The U.S. has quietly put in place a review mechanism. It gives Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth the personal authority to block Ukrainian long-range strikes inside Russia using American-supplied weapons. And this isn't just theory. It's been in effect for months, preventing ATACMS from being fired into Russian territory, even when Ukraine had valid military targets. This same leash will apply to ERAM. Every strike inside Russia will need Pentagon approval. Even the British Storm Shadow, which relies on U.S. targeting data, falls under this shadowy review process. And yes, it was designed by Pentagon Undersecretary Elbridge Colby, a man famous for spreadsheets, not battlefield realities. The ERAM's range up to 280 miles puts critical Russian infrastructure at risk. Air bases in Crimea, supply hubs in occupied territories, even parts of Russia proper. But with Washington's review process, Ukraine may be restricted to using ERAM only against targets within its recognized borders. That means the very targets ERAM was designed to neutralize, rear area logistics, in Russia could remain off limits. Imagine giving a soldier a sniper rifle, but only letting him use it within 100 yards. It's a weapon, yes, but not the one it could be. Okay, so the US has approved 3,500 of these ERAMs, not 4,000 as some reports have suggested. That's still massive volume. To put in perspective, Ukraine received just a few hundred Storm Shadows and Scalps. ERAM is designed to be mass-produced, cheap enough that losing a few to Russian SAMs doesn't derail the war effort. It's a war of attrition, and ERAM is meant to be affordable attrition firepower. Moscow can brag about shooting down a few ERAMs, sure, but what happens when there are hundreds in the air, all targeting different depots, bridges, and ammo dumps? Good luck intercepting that with 30-year-old S-300 batteries. Ukraine's long-range strike arsenal covers a wide spectrum of range and capability. At the tactical level, HIMARS and GIMLRs provide precision fire out to 80 kilometers, ideal for hitting frontline and near-rear targets. Stepping up that distance, ATACMS extends that reach to 300 kilometers, with both cluster and unitary warhead options, giving Ukraine the ability to hit deeper strategic sites. The Storm Shadow and the Scalp cruise missiles offer about 250 kilometers range and devastating precision, but their limited stock and high cost restrict how often they can be used. Then there's Ukraine's own homemade Flamingo cruise missile. Depending on now how many of those they have, that offers Ukraine a way around Pentagon restrictions on range. But the harmony happens when Ukraine uses these Western-supplied weapons with these homemade weapons like Flamingo. Now we're just throwing in ERAM to the mix, and the ERAM might be the sweet spot. Long reach, cheaper to build, and available in bulk. It doesn't replace Storm Shadow, doesn't replace Flamingo, it complements them. Think of HIMARS as the scalpel, Storm Shadow as the surgical laser, and ERAM as the box of scalpels you can hand out to the whole medical team. With ERAM, Ukraine gains the ability to saturate Russian rear areas. That forces Russia to disperse logistics, move ammo dumps further back, and waste precious SAM interceptors. Every ERAM that gets through is a headache for the Kremlin. Every ERAM they shoot down still costs them a missile defense interceptor. It's a lose-lose scenario for Russia. And the Kremlin's propaganda? Well, they'll scream that ERAM is an escalation, but let's be clear. The only thing escalating is Moscow's anxiety every time a radar blip shows up over Belgorod. The ERAM deal itself was delayed until after President Trump met with Putin in Alaska last week, and then Zelensky at the White House. That's not coincidence. Washington is trying to thread the needle here. Arm Ukraine, but keep options open for a political deal. The review process is part of that balancing act, but it leaves Ukraine in a bind, holding a powerful weapon, but needing permission to use it to its fullest potential. Here's the bottom line. ERAM is a fantastic tool for Ukraine. It extends their reach, gives them numbers, and complicates Russia's logistics. But its impact will depend less on engineering and more on politics. The Pentagon's leash could turn a 280-mile missile into a 50-mile one, depending on who signs the permission slip. So Ukraine's homemade Flamingo cruise missiles are more important now than ever. Anyways, 3,550 ERAMs are on the way. Will they be the low-cost cruise missile that breaks Russia's supply chains, or just another weapon limited by U.S. politics? Time will tell, but one thing's for sure. Moscow's generals are about to spend a lot more time staring at radar screens and wondering where the next strike is coming from. Scalp? Storm Shadow? Attackams? ERAM? Flamingo? Я не знаю. That's it for today, my friends. If you want more battlefield analysis like this, subscribe right here and check out my Substack Eyes Only for the written deep dives. Until next time, remember, Western weapons plus Ukrainian ingenuity equals Russian regret. And as always, glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Crimea is Ukraine.